Today we're talking about using pens effectively, and this game takes place against a player rated 1994 on the Dr. Chess website. We are playing as black, initially trying to develop kind of a weird position here. Gotta watch out for the pawns. Bring my knight out there. Black attacks with the bishop.
Check.
Decide to go for the check. Basically, that's my way of trading material there. You want to open up space and keep room for development here. So White has really good control of the center in this game right now, so we have to figure out a way to win. So developing the pawn there, they take, fair enough. And the reason I did that was so I could get the bishops developed. Got to get some pieces moving here. So bishop 1's developed. There's bishop 2. That's developed right there.
Kingside castling.
White castles. So we're going to see how to effectively use the pin coming up right here. White decides to move out of the way, to which I have a plan, and it involves a sacrifice and attacking White's king side, which is one of the things I like to do. Sometimes this gambit works, sometimes it doesn't. It's got to be used very effectively here. So White plays the pawn to block. I bring in the bishop. Check. White captures. Okay. So I've lost material in that exchange, and I haven't really taken out the position. So what do I do next? I bring out the queen. Queen is a pen on the king, or on the pawn in front of the king. Okay, and we're going to use this to actually win the game. You can see there's 52 moves here. Okay. So White brings the rook out, trying to push the e pawn, the e4 pawn. So my plan is to work these pawns and then work the bishop. And then possibly get the other rook involved. But primarily, I need to have like 2 or 3 pieces. Queen, I can do it with a queen in one piece if I get the right setup here. I'm looking to try to set up a mating pattern, basically. So I push the pawn there. Looking to exchange pawns and open up a file for the rook. I'm not taking that, so I'm going to push the f pawn forward. And be careful on when opponents offer exchanges. If you can figure out a way around that, try to do that as much as possible. Try to always look for that better move. Sometimes you find it, sometimes you don't. But if you can find it, your odds of winning can go up. So pushing the pawn there, to which I push the g pawn right there. Okay. White captures right there. My next move is just simply push the pawn. I've got 2 defenders on that pawn. And obviously, I'm looking to back the king in further. Now, the one problem we have is White's queen on d3. That's defending. So if I lose my queen, I can't make any of this work. I got to have a queen. Queen's very valuable. It's a very good offensive piece. It also can act as a facilitator. It can defend. It can defend a number of pieces. Right now, it's being used to pen. We're looking to win the game here with it. So, and then White helps by moving his queen off from d3. And what they're looking to do here is they're looking to get rid of that pawn. But I don't want that, so best move here is to put the king in check. Now we've got the g pawn pinned to the king. Okay? So we got to make effective use of that here. So since that pawn is pinned, the king is not protected. Now, White has the e3 square covered. White has 2 rooks. We've only got a queen, right? So how do we strengthen our position? Well, if you'll notice the d7 bishop, I was looking to use that at some point. Well, the g2 pawn is pinned to the king. That means we can capture the h3 pawn right there. And there's nothing White can do about it because it's pinned. Okay? So White brings back a bishop to try to remove the queen. We still have a pen in place. We still have the g4 square. We go back there. White decides to push the pawn, to which I decide to bring up the rook to f5, which is very valuable because we'll see it in a few moves, how it's effectively used here. White pushes the pawn again. They've got 2 pieces protecting it. We have 1 piece to block, so we go ahead and block there. Okay. So we got a pen in place. White has to do something about the pen. If White moves its queen, out of the way from guarding that pawn on g2, it's checkmate. So white decides to move its queen, looking to do an exchange here. Okay. Now, I wanted to go back with a queen to g5, but the problem is that would expose the bishop on h3. So this was a tricky spot for me. I almost ran out of time here. If you want to hit pause and think about what you think is the best move, go ahead. Okay, after thinking it over for a while, what I decided to do is I needed to keep a pen in place on the king, regardless if I lost my queen or not. So I decided to play a rook takes g5. Okay, in this point, white was trying to... white thinks it has the pawn defending on g2, the queen, but it's not because it's penned. So that's one of the things to recognize. When you have a piece penned, it can't do defensive. It can't defend other pieces. So that's one of the things to recognize when you have a piece penned, or when your opponent has a piece penned. It can't defend other pieces like it normally can. So here white brings in the knight, to which we can now capture the queen, because that g2 pawn is still pinned, and it's pinned by the rook as well. And at this point, white resigns from the game. In this second example right here, we are playing as white, and our opponent is rated 1878. Interesting move right here. If you'll notice, black captures the e4 pawn. A number of different responses. They're playing aggressive. I want to play aggressive too. So I know that if I capture that pawn on e5, they're probably going to push the d7 pawn, looking to take the bishop. So I decided to go for it anyway with a backup plan here, to which, because I'm threatening that f7 square here, so black has to defend, and that's what black does. So what's the plan? Queen to f4, f3, threatening checkmate. Okay, but black's a smart player, so black's going to push that pawn forward. What's the alternative plan? Well, now that h5 square is pretty open.
Check.
There's a check right there. Now, here's the thing. If black brings the g pawn, g7 pawn forward, I can capture with knight, and then possibly win the rook, and then do some other stuff there. Black decides to move its king out of the way, to which we have this option with the knight right here. And we're going to get to the pin part. That's coming up a little bit later here.
Check.
But there's a check there, and then we win the rook. So we're going to trade basically rook for bishop there. So decide to put more pressure.
Check.
There's a check right there. King out of the way. Decide to start developing here, and this is where the pin is going to occur in a couple moves here. But you see, we developed the knight right there. So okay, black's developed his pieces, trying to get the king to safety. We'll move the queen out of the way right there. Black captures. So this is where I had to think for a minute. Normally, I'd like to get that d pawn opened out of the way. However, we could pin the king to the bishop, and potentially more later, by capturing here. So what we're going to do is we're going to capture with the b2 pawn right there. And what that does is that opens up a spot for the bishop to move to a3 and pin the bishop on f8. Not that we'd want to win that, but there's another combo we can win if we bring in the queen, if we can get this bishop on e6 out of the way. So a lot of threats there. Now remember, black can't move its queen to e8. What black decides to do is move its queen to e7 right there. Okay? Perfect opportunity for a pinning the king to the queen so we could win the queen.
Check.
So that's what we do. We move the bishop to a3. pinning the king, or skewering. Yeah, so black's in a bad position. Black has to block, or get out of the way and lose the queen. Okay. The one problem with this move here is we still have the queen on h5 that protects the bishop. So the bishop can go ahead and take that, and at that point, black resigns from the game. And of course, that's going to wrap this up.